And sometimes what's at odds with your brain is going after your dreams because it's scary, because you could be taking a risk, because maybe you're going to put yourself out on a limb in that meeting and propose a new idea, and your survivalist brain is telling you, no, 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 don't stand out, don't stand out, don't stand out. You're going to get fired. There's times you need to silence your brain. And if you're aware of this pattern, you can really edit what your brain is going to say. And you can step back and think, okay, is what my brain's serving me up actually real? Or is this my survivalist brain and fear talking?
Because if you missed today, or you have friends who missed today, you can always watch us again on YouTube. So if you are joining us from YouTube on a future date, it is awesome to see you guys too. Looking forward to seeing you at a future show. Okay, so we are having a whole conversation about confidence. And so I thought I would open this afternoon with a bit of a conversation about my point of view about confidence in general. So here's the first one. And I think it's the one that I think we stumble on, because we always believe that confidence is just a me thing. And actually, what I want everybody to take away from today is a couple of things. And the first three things, well, the first one is that confidence isn't just about you. It's actually about the perception of you, both your perception of you and other people's perception of you. And I think about this idea of perception, and I sit here and I say, like, which line of confidence are you on? If you think about the perception line as one thing, are you overconfident, which no one really likes very much, right? Or are you being underconfident? And if you think about, when you think about this idea of perception, what the other people want from you is actually the most confident version of you. Because if you're being overconfident, well, maybe you're promising things you can't actually deliver. And if you're underconfident, you're actually kind of doing the same thing, just in reverse. You're actually offering up a less fantastic version of you. And I know if you have shown up today, you are fantastic. And if you are engaging with other people, you need to be fantastic. So if any of you are sitting here going, oh, I can't talk about myself, I feel really awkward, I don't want to do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I want you to just throw away the entire narrative you've had today around how being confident and promoting yourself is a negative thing. And actually remember that if you are not offering up the most fantastic, fabulous version of you, well, you're actually being kind of selfish. And that in offering your most generous and fabulous version of yourself, you are actually being generous, because confidence comes bidirectionally. Somebody wants to believe in the future you the same way you do. So first, give yourself the gift of generosity. This is the most generous thing you can do for yourself and for everybody else that you are engaging with. Okay, second truth about confidence when it comes, and self-promotion when it comes to me, is there is a very simple magic formula for building confidence. Very, very simple. Magic is in action. So I want to give you a very clear example of where you have already experienced this to date. I'm going to take a wild assumption that you are either completely capable of riding a bicycle or completely capable of swimming. Pretty much, well, let me ask, is there anybody who can't do either of those things? Just wave your hand, because I will give you a get out of jail free card. Yeah, everybody can do both those things. So I want you to go back in time really quickly and remember, and let's use the bicycle analogy because it's my fave. Remember when you couldn't ride a bike. At the beginning, you had training wheels, and my guess is you also had some very loving parent, usually, and or adult, sometimes sibling, which could be slightly scarier, who was there for you. And they often were out front pulling you along. And then after a while, once you got the pedaling piece down, they came around behind you and they put their little hand on your little tuchus and they gave you a little nudge. And that little nudge became a slightly bigger nudge and a bigger nudge. And eventually you were going. And then they were like, time to take the training wheels off. And in that moment when the training wheels came off, and for me, it was my dad, because he pushed really freaking hard and wanted to scare me on purpose. There's that moment right before you find that beautiful balance of momentum and balance physically on a bicycle, where you think you're gonna die, right? You're like, I'm gonna come off the bike. There's gonna be Joanna parts all over the street. I'm gonna leave DNA everywhere, although I don't think I knew it was DNA, like super, super scared right before that moment of flow. And then you feel it. It's the same thing when you're in a swimming pool. You're like, I'm going to drown, I'm going to drown. You suddenly realize how to float. Here's the magic thing about that moment right before the super scary part is if you keep moving forward, like on a bicycle, literally the forward momentum is where you find the balance. You will find it. And guess what? Can any of you remember how not to ride a bike? Can any of you now sink when you're in a swimming pool? I don't think so. Same thing happens with confidence, is right before you do the thing, you think you might die and it's kind of terrifying, but it's in the actual action of doing the thing that helps you get past whatever my brain says I can't do this thing, and helps you build confidence. Because once you have done the thing, and then another thing, and then another thing, you're actually adding toolkit to your little backpack of stuff that you can do, including swimming or riding a bike. So anybody who says you could just talk yourself through confidence building, although I certainly do chat with myself when I'm in that very wobbly moment, I think is giving you bad advice. The magic is in action. You have to do to make things happen. The last truth I want to kind of bust the myth on around confidence is, if you're not confident in something, that you have to wait until you are. This is where you are confident, where you are perfect, where you've got all the things. I think this is such a fairy tale. And I know many of you who've come to the show before, it's nice to see some familiar faces here, know that I am basically obsessed with Cinderella and her entire narrative, because I sit here and I say, who on the planet said that Cinderella was going to be a good dancer? Who on the planet said she actually had any right to go to the ball? She just went, I want to go. And she was fully prepared to go originally, before they came in and destroyed her dress, in a not so fabulous dress. She technically wasn't qualified to go to the ball, and yet she went anyway. And in doing so, got to see her opportunity, aka the prince, and all of those good sorts of things. I see us so often waiting for your inner belief to align with where it is you need to go, and this concept of perfectionism. And I come back to Cinderella, bicycle, doesn't matter. It's actually in that wobbly bit that things start to happen. So those are my truth bombs about confidence, and how to talk about, well, really how to start thinking about self-promotion, and really being powerful in that you can be fantastically generous. But I also, as you are well aware, invited a friend today. I am so honored to be able to invite my friend Sarah Lacy to the show today. We have been getting up to shenanigans together for years, specifically with her amazing, amazing community over at Chairman Mom. I am a super fan, and I'm a super fan, and a super fan of why I thought she'd be a perfect guest for this show is what I have learned about Sarah and getting to know her, and what I continue to see from her is this idea of courage in spite of. Sarah has had to, in her professional world, face down some monsters and really talk to people who said, you know, how dare you think you should be in the room that you think you should be in? And she is completely unapologetic and enthusiastic about her right to be in the room. And so I give her the award of courage in spite of. Like, she is the queen of managing through the wobbly space. I will also add that within that context, she is unapologetic about her values and who she is and what she's all about. There is not this, oh, I'm going to give you the flavor of the month of what you want to hear from Sarah. There is no bullshit in it. I think it's all fantastic there, which I think is the sign of authenticity. And really, as I came back to it, as I said, like, she and I have been up to so many shenanigans together that I wanted you to hear from them. We're actually going to talk about a specific set of shenanigans that we have created together, which, if today you come out of this and be like, oh my God, Joanna, like 30 minutes of you and Sarah ranting about confidence was not enough. The excellent news is Sarah is a genius at creating programs and experiences for people who want to take a powerful journey. And she called me up and was like, come on, Joanna, I need you to do this with me. And so we are co-hosting an 8-week program on the Chairman Mom platform, which I am now inviting you all to learn about and come join us and do all of the things, where it's asynchronous. There's all sorts of great stuff going on. We will have office hours. There will be a lot more of this sort of interaction. So preview early. We're going to open up for Q&A at the end, but I want to talking about all my stuff and flip over to Sarah. So Sarah, I started with my 3 truths about confidence. What are yours?
Well, you know, the thing that I've discovered as you and I've been building this course, we so frequently have very similar ideas that we articulate from different points of view, which is both, I think, a sign of, you know, sometimes looking at something a different way, it makes more sense to you, but also like there is this sort of immutable truthiness of this stuff for people who do it well. So I would say my first one is, you absolutely can fake it till you make it. I would say the debate about fake it till you make it is the number one thing that I hear people say you should do, you shouldn't do when it comes to self-promotion, when it comes to confidence. If we didn't fake it till we make, I mean, like, newsflash, we live in a white supremacist patriarchal world where if you're an underrepresented person in any way, you spent your whole life being gaslit that you're not good enough because of how you were born. So if we didn't fake it till we make it, like, none of us would have positions of power. And by the way, that's a feature, not a bug of the patriarchy. This is why power looks the way it does in this country, in this world. So the idea that we can't fake it till we make it is such bullshit. It's one of those things that they tell women to get us to sit down and shut up. I fake it till I make it all the time. I live in a world of uncomfortable. I always feel uncomfortable bragging about myself. You know, there's that great book, The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes, where she writes a whole page about how amazing she is. And then she's like, I feel so sick having written that. And I'm fighting like the voices to go delete it right now. That is how you should feel at all points when you're self-promoting. If you are an underrepresented person, I actually think it's very hard for us to authentically be overconfident because we've been so gaslit into thinking it's not nice to be that way. We should know our place, you know, blah, 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 voices. So, you know, I think absolutely fake it till you make it. Think about sorry, I'm outside and there's a chainsaw. Think about like what mediocre white men would do and do it. There's so many times I'm in a room and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel really out over my skis here. But then I think if I was, you know, Mark, Rick, or Steve Lacy, what would I be doing? And it'd be like, oh, I'd just be demanding this thing that I want because I want it. And like, you know, so that's sort of all truth number one, sorry, big one. Second one, when you feel super wobbly, root yourself in what does make you feel genuinely and authentically confident, no matter what it is. I will say I wrote a whole book about the transformation that happened when I became a mother, which I didn't expect because everyone told me, oh, you become a mother, then you're suddenly weak. You will never make any more money. You're going to be like, you're going to fall apart. You're going to be puked on at all times. And it's like, for whatever reason, I was one of those women who like, I'm just an incredible mom. And this was sort of a surprise to everyone because like, I'm very ambitious. People think of me as very masculine, like, but I I absolutely ferociously love my children, and I know how to parent my children. I never had to read a parenting book. I never had to do any of that BS. I just intuitively know how to parent my two babies so deeply. And that's a major source of confidence for me. If I feel like shitty at work or out of my depth, I spend a weekend with my kids and it's like we just do ridiculous things. I know how to answer their questions. I know how to meet them where they are. And I like draw on that strength because it's like, I'm good at this. I know what I'm doing. And that feeling can really extend to other things. So whether it's like running, maybe it's scuba diving, like it can be anything. When you feel like bake a cake, what is your thing that makes you feel good and confident? Because like those endorphins will be those endorphins no matter what. And honestly, some of those things, if they're hard, really lean into them. When I was, have built two venture funded companies in Silicon Valley. Less than 3% of women get venture capital. Those can be really hard and intimidating rooms to be in. And I would just remind myself again and again, I've given birth twice. Like, can any of the men in the room do that? No? Okay, then sit down. So like rooting yourself in that confidence is huge. And it's a great source of giving yourself a pep talk. Number 3, take stock of what you've done and don't let your survivalist brain control the narrative. So here's what I mean by that. Our conscious brain does not want us to be happy. It does not want us to feel good. It does not necessarily want us to fill out our list of New Year's recommendations or resolutions. What are they called? Resolutions. What it wants us to do is survive. And sometimes what's at odds with your brain is going after your dreams because it's scary, because you could be taking a risk, because maybe you're going to put yourself out on a limb in that meeting and propose a new idea, and your survivalist brain is telling you, no, don't stand out, don't stand out, don't stand out. You're going to get fired. There's times you need to silence your brain. And if you're aware of this pattern, you can really edit what your brain is going to say. And you can step back and think, okay, is what my brain's serving me up actually real? Or is this my survivalist brain and fear talking? And again, this kind of goes triple if you're any kind of underrepresented group, because we do have real fear. We do have real retaliation. We do have real gaslighting. In many ways, there's actual like real physical harm that has been done to us simply because of who we are. So like your brain may have really, really good reasons for doing this, but when it comes to achieving your goals, your brain's kind of a jerk. And so you need to treat it as one opinion. So when I say take stock of what you've done, your brain also will adapt to norms. So you know how like you like spend forever like wanting that job or that promotion or that relationship, and you just keep thinking, if I can just get this one thing, if I can just get this one thing, if I can just get this one thing, and then you get that thing, and then you're like happy for 5 seconds, and then your brain is like, now if I can get this next thing, if I can, I mean, again, survivalist brain, it is not wired for you to be happy. So it's not going to be wired for you to bask in your accomplishments either. So you need to remind your brain everything you've accomplished and why you have so much confidence, why you are deserving of confidence, because your brain is going to continually throw you in the deep end where you don't feel good because it wants you to survive. So you need to step back, and if it's making a list, if it's keeping a file on your desktop of all those emails or compliments you get that you can return to remind yourself of that. I mean, I did this last night. We're at a real inflection point for our company, but we've also achieved so much. We grew revenues 15x in the fourth quarter of a pandemic during an election. That doesn't happen. But my brain's not serving me up that message. My brain is serving me up, why are you failing on marketing right now? I have to remind myself and tell myself, you just did all this. And there's this beautiful phrase that I heard from Julia Hartz, who's the CEO of Eventbrite. Her, when she was like pregnant, or I think she was like gave birth maybe to twins, was also building a company. Like, it was just like sort of explosion of life. And she called her mom and was like, oh my God, how did you do this? How did you do this? And how am I going to do this? And her mom said, what got you here will get you there. And at the time she was like, oh, shut up. I wanted real advice. But then she came to learn that's super true. And I will tell you, it sounds annoying when you first hear it, but really step back and think, of the last jump you didn't think you could make, the last time you felt out of your depth. What was it in you that got you there? Because that thing will get you to the next place.
I'm just going to announce right now that I'm going to go make a coffee cup that says, what got you here will get you there. And we'll put a link. We'll put it on Zazzle so you can just go buy it. We'll put a link in the email, because I don't know about you, but I want one of those coffee cups. Feel free to send a message in chat if you've got a particular color of coffee cup that you fancy. As you can tell, like the colors, but oh my, now you all understand why I'm like, Sarah Lacy, which part of one of the big reasons I invited you, and part of why I think you're amazing and I love you to death, is you aren't the usual alpha male model of confidence that we see. And I know my own confidence, like I have two women from my youth, my great aunt and then a family friend, who, when all of the other people around me looked and sounded the same, they were the two who were like, I'm gonna go off and do my thing. And like my great aunt, as an example, bought herself a birthday present of a first class ticket on the Orient Express for her 80th birthday, and took the train from Paris to Cairo alone, because she was kind of like that. And I was like, I want to grow up and be like her. And I do think when it comes to seeing models of language that we can use to promote ourselves, like I've learned stuff today, or other people, I think seeing other not the alpha male model. And I'm curious, like, do you have does anybody inspire you, or do you have models that you look at and you go, yes, please, thank you very much, that's a model I could follow, or somebody else in this room could follow as well?
Yes, and I'm going to move rooms to get away from the chainsaw in my backyard. I don't know if
it's all good.
You guys,
we're all family.
So let's see, models I have. So I thought about this question because you give so many good models in the course, and I didn't want to steal one of yours, but yours are so good. So I felt like I had to like really step this up. So I came up with one famous one and one not famous one. So I'm going to give two, if that's okay. So the famous one is Whoopi Goldberg. So I'm not a huge Whoopi Goldberg fan, I have to say. Like she's not exactly like my jam. And if you like ever watch her on clips of The View, she is you would think she is Angelina Jolie. You would think she is the top grossing movie star of all time. She carries herself with zero apology, with zero sense of, hey, I'm just kind of someone who used to be big in the 80s or the 90s. Like she doesn't have any of that self-doubt that I would have, frankly, if I was Whoopi Goldberg. And so for a while I was sort of like, why does she think she's such a big deal? And then I watched Sister Act. And I was like, and I started thinking about it, and I started reading all this stuff about those days of Whoopi Goldberg's career. She thinks she's a huge deal because she was a huge fucking deal. Like, do you guys remember, like, think about that moment that Halle Berry won the Oscar and how incredible that was. And then how everyone was like, yeah, but colorism, she's kind of not super Black. She looks white. Like all of these dynamics that Black women, wrongly or rightly, feel they have to have in order to be that breakout star, how they have to do their hair differently, how they have to look a different way, how they have to conform to Western beauty standards. Whoopi Goldberg played none of those games at all, still doesn't, proudly does not wear a bra, proudly wears tennis shoes every day. Like you want to look at someone who did that on their own terms, Whoopi Goldberg, and she was box office gold. She was at that time the highest grossing movie star in the world, full stop. So if you want to look at an example of someone who took on her industry without doing any of the shoulds that everyone told her to, and by the way, not trying to cast hate on Halle Berry at all, but like not trying, like she absolutely did it her way, unapologetically, and won. So Whoopi Goldberg is my famous one. My non-famous one is actually my older daughter, Eli, who's 10 years old. So I have two daughters. Evie is the one who's going to be president. She walked into a new school and like within 2 months ran for a student council office as a third grader and won. Like Evie's a T-Rex of confidence, but Evie's almost the easy answer to get. The one that's the hard answer, who's more impressive, whose confidence blows me away even more, is Eli. And I'll tell you why. Eli is transgender, Eli does not naturally have the confidence of Evie. Eli is not an activist. Eli is very private. She is very introverted. She's shy. She was severely traumatized for her gender in kindergarten and had to spend years in therapy building herself back up. And yet, Eli has always felt an amazing God-given right to be who she is that no one will ever take away from her. And even when she's closeting herself, even when she's traumatized, even when she's upset, she's wearing the pink socks. Like she always knows who she is. She has never talked out of it. She knows it is a right that she has. And her therapist is like, I have never seen a child this young who's transgender, who is so clear on who she is and the right to be who she is. And now at this new school, despite what she went through before, there's other transgender kids at this school. She's the only openly transgender child. She's the only one who's not like, no, I don't want to take the opportunity for the first time in my life to wear a dress to school and fit in and not feel out of place. I'm going to be at the school as a girl and I'm going to be at the school as a transgender girl because I'm not hiding anymore. When you get traumatized as a kid who doesn't want to stand out and be different, that is confidence. And the reason I find that so inspiring is it is so innate. It is so who she is. It cannot be divorced from who she is. And it is done from a place of fear and uncertainty, but she does it anyway. I think the same way we talk about, confidence, courage isn't never being scared. Courage is doing something scary when you're scared. Confidence isn't always feeling like it's a warm crowd. Confidence is knowing there are haters in the midst. Confidence is knowing people are going to try to take you down. People are going to be going, because let's face it, they're always doing that to us. And like, you do it anyway.
Yeah. We've talked about this as well. Like, I always talk about this idea that our lives are this lovely, I talk about lines a lot. Like you've got all sorts of past lines that you have made decisions on. And some of them have been fantastic. And some of them you've been like, oh, not so much. Let me back up and go along. And what I get excited about is the lines of the future and the paths that you can choose and all of those sorts of things. And I talk about like the goal is to walk the line between bored and scared. And I absolutely, and I'm guessing you do too, I tend to sit here and go like my inner critic, my self-talk goes, optimize for bored. It's easy. Like optimize for bored. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. Optimize for bored, like all of these sorts of things. But I know in my heart that actually optimizing for the scary thing is what makes change happen, is the thing that when somebody goes, oh, well done, I actually go, oh, I earned it. I'm always tipping over to the optimize for scary. And I assume you do the same thing. And so I'm curious when I sit here and I say, look, you need to get comfortable talking about yourself and sharing why you are uniquely awesome to other people. It does feel scary and it does feel like you're putting yourself out there, but it's the right thing to do. I'd love to hear how you've specifically optimized for kind of scary in your career to date.
So I'll tell you, this is one of a few areas where we're slightly different. My problem is I overly optimize for scary. I'm not on that line. I'm fully in scary. I only do things that make me feel terrified. And by the way, this is kind of something I'm working on in a personal front. I've decided that like my new resolution is to basically hew more to that line and have slight bit of maybe we can be bored and things can be easy, because I am so far on the line of scary. And I think frankly, this is if I sit back and look at why have I been able to do the things that I've been able to do, I think it's because I am really comfortable and scary in ways other people aren't. Every time I feel I can do something, I get super bored and I find ways to explode my life so that it will be scary again. And I think that, there's something about being in the middle of chaos that I really love. And I'll tell you what I think part of it is. I think it's that there's no expectation you're going to get straight A's. There's no expectation you're going to get it all right. I was just in a meeting earlier with someone who was like, my fear in doing this one thing is I'm such a straight A student and I can only get a C in that. And I'm like, but that's amazing. Like, we should all optimize for a C as a passing grade, because, what freedom to not have to be perfect and not have to get it right. And I think because I don't like perfectionism, and I just won't get things 100% right. I'm too much of a hot mess. I thrive in chaos where getting 70% right of it is winning. Like, this is why I like starting companies. This is why I like the messiness of, journalism when I was a journalist. This is why I like being a parent. Like, this is why, like, I'm naturally the worst runner you've ever seen. And like, I started running because it was just like, I can't do this. Like, it's whenever things are super, super calm that I get bored and immediately have to throw something else into it. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not like also scared in those situations. Like, I'm really scared of horses, but like, I will find excuses to ride horses as a result. It's just this idea that I never want to feel safe or complacent, because I just know that's where ambition and dreams go to die. And so I want this constant muscle memory of feeling uncomfortable, so that when I need to feel uncomfortable, it feels like home. And so, I mean, my life can be a cautionary tale. I don't know that anyone should like live their life so on the edge of discomfort as I've done. But it's also worked out well. And, to me, this is also, there's a whole frame on this with what we've just lived through in the pandemic. Like, I find myself saying over and over again to myself and everyone else, did we survive a pandemic to ... I mean, didn't, like, even for me, I feel like I really pulled back in the last year, and I was like, how much of this is just kind of a BS game simulation we've opted into? Like, none of us are really, are facing odds that are that existential. And it's like, certainly I have a ton of privilege. I know I have more privilege than a lot of people. There's a lot of people with more privilege than me who don't take remotely the risks I do. And I'm super stressed out right now about, like, is my company going to get to the next stage? Are we going to run out of money? Are we going to be able to raise another round? Am I going to not have a job? These are all legitimate worries, but like, they're also kind of BS worries. Like, let's be honest about what hangs in the balance. I've had a long career. I can find another job. I know I can find another job. So am I going to get kicked to my house and my children going to starve? No. So what is on the balance? Okay, well, investors who invested millions of dollars with me. Okay, thank you very much. I like that you did that. I tried my best. The venture capital game is a game of taking a small percentage of pension fund money that can be lost, giving it to other people who are rich, who then invest it, assuming 2/3 of that money will be lost. Loss is baked into those millions that came to me. So like, what happens if we go broke? And that sucks, and that'll be sad, and I'll mourn that, but I'll grow from that experience, and like, everyone will move on. Like, I do think sometimes these things, again, that our conscious mind will try to convince us are so life or death. Just step back and think, okay, what if the worst happens? I remember when I was in my 20s, I called off a wedding 2 weeks before. I remember feeling this moment of, I can't do this. I can't call this wedding off. And then I kind of stepped back from the ledge and thought, wait, why can't I call this wedding off? Okay, let's like go okay. And then I've got to make a bunch of phone calls. All right, well, my mom made my wedding dress. Kind of sucks. I'm not going to wear it. Like, you just go through the things. You can always solve these things no matter what it is. And I know sometimes that's like cataclysmic illness, like people who get cancer diagnoses. Okay, well, now here's my treatment regimen. Here's what I'm going to do. Like, our brain wants to make us feel like everything is doomsday, but it also, our brain, once you get past that whole struggle narrative, is also really good at coming up with solutions. So I don't know. It's hard, almost hard for me to tell people to embrace scary, because I live in scary and I love scary. And that's where I feel comfortable. But like, if you're someone who constantly feels like you're getting maybe 70% of stuff right and you're screwing up other stuff, come on into the deep end, because we're not expected to get it all right, and you'll suddenly be a hero.
Yeah. I know a lot of what, and why we talk a lot about this idea of confidence is, when I think about the work that we do here about the future you, is one of the first things I always say to people. Michelle can actually tell you, she and I had a conversation about this just this morning, where I said, the first person who needs to believe in themselves is you. because how can you expect, especially if you're thinking about self-promotion, career change, pivoting your career, like whatever it is your ambitions are in the future, you have to kind of say, hey, me first, before you can turn it around and start promoting this out. Because if you don't have that really solidly anchored, then you're going to be really worried about and react to what is your future path, which leads me to my last question, Sarah. Like, you basically stalked me for, I don't know, what, 6 months to do this program together. Because you were like, Joanna, people need this and we need to talk about it. I'd love you to share why this combination of confidence and self-promotion and this entire program, why you think it's important, and what is it like, what are your ambitions for the people who come play with us?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I feel like not every single, I would say most men I know have in my career has spent all this time telling me I'm too self-promotional. And most women I know have spent all this time saying, oh my gosh, can you teach a course on self-promotion? Because I need to be as self-promotional as you. I mean, I do think that there's this thing of, we feel like there's this expectation that we shouldn't do this. And again, that's a feature, not a bug of the system. You are not going to get what you want if you don't get over this fear of promoting yourself and talking about yourself. And yes, it feels uncomfortable, and it feels uncomfortable for me too. Like I said, I just live in the discomfort. Now it feels awful, it feels uncomfortable. And like everyone will say, put your mask on first. We still don't want to do it. If I was in a plane and oxygen masks came down, guarantee you I'd put it on my kids first, despite every single time someone saying, put it on yourself first. But you know what? There's hacks around that. There's hacks around everything. And that's a lot of what we do in this course is we get into, what are all the reasons you haven't done this yet? What are all the reasons this is hard for you? Guess what? We have workarounds, we have solutions, we have small daily actions, we have muscle memory. This is not a course that's designed for white men who are born on third base, who have no problem promoting themselves. This is a course designed for people who, for whatever reason, have struggled with this, but are ready to change and are ready to live a little bit in that discomfort in order to make that change. Because like, I mean, how much do you want the thing that you want? This isn't hard. I mean, it's intentional. It feels uncomfortable, but it's not hard, and you can absolutely do it. And I want this course to be successful because, again, I'm trying to build a company. Part of our company is building courses, and I got to make a quarter. So like, I want this course to be successful for all sorts of selfish reasons. But, you know, I want this course to be successful for a lot of other reasons too. I mean, if every single woman in the world took this course, gender polarity, roles in companies, who gets money, who gets promotions, this would all change overnight. Now, would it become 50-50 overnight? Well, I don't know. We probably have to do a little bit more work and, you know, be band together and do some other things. But I think it would go from about, 10% in some industries, 2% in venture capital to 20 or 30. I really, really, truly do, because no one else is selling you if you're not selling you, and everyone else is selling themselves. So you are at a double disadvantage. So, if it's too hard to think about you're doing it for you, do it for your family. Is there a cause that you're really into? Do it for the cause. Tell yourself you're doing it for someone else if that makes it easier. But you've got to do this, or you just will not ever live up to your full potential, because we live in a capitalist society, and you got to scream about brand and advertise your potential like any other product, or you're not going to get it. And my entire goal for my company, my entire mission in life is for women, whether moms or not, to live the life they want. And if that life is being a stay-at-home mom, I support that 1,000,000,000%. I love crafting. I love hanging out with my kids. I get it. Part of me is probably envious. I've always been the breadwinner and never had that as an option. But, whatever that life is, if you want to be a school teacher, Thank you, Jesus. We need amazing school teachers. I'm not saying your goal has to be CEO of your own company, but it should be the life you want to live. Not your parents want you to live, not your boss wants you to live, not your spouse wants you to live, not what your kids want you to live. And you will not get that life unless you learn how to ask for it. So we offer, about 20 courses a year. There's a lot of courses we build. This is probably the one course that is absolutely at the core of our mission statement, because we've been gaslit into not promoting ourselves so that we do not gain power, whether that's conscious or unconscious. That is reality. And the only way we get past that is learning how to self-promote.
Right. So for those of you that haven't seen already, we dropped the link that has ton more information that we couldn't even cover today because we didn't want this just to be a sales call about this in the chat. But for the what do you take actionable out of the call today on how do you self-promote, step one, what is it you want to offer? Get really clear about what is it you want to offer. Not what do you think other people want from you, but what is it you want to offer? Because when what you want to offer is wanted by somebody else, you can absolutely, it becomes infinitely easier to sell it through. It becomes infinitely easier for people to recognize its potential. So get good with you. Second of all, start to believe in its fabulousness and use all of the things that Sarah said today and some of the things I said today to really think about how do I get me believing in it, even if you're having to kind of go, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I had dinner with one of my mentors last night, a guy who plucked me out of obscurity when I was about 26. And the surprising announcement from him, who is absolutely one of those confident alpha male guys that we were referencing earlier, was he's made a big shift in his life recently. And every night before he goes to bed, he talks to himself and tells him what the future him is going to be. He's absolutely a believer in this process, even for himself, even who's somebody you'd think, oh, they don't need any of this sort of stuff. Once you have the what is it and how am I confident about it, as you all know from going through all of the future you programming, then you need to flip the construct. Why would the other person care? Because while it is all about you, it is not about you. It's about what other people want you. And when you start thinking about that, that's when the language of how to promote yourself confidently starts to manifest. Now, we've taken what I've just said and really broken it down into bite-sized actionable content for this course. And by the way, we didn't talk about this. There are office hours every week where you can come and get some both Joanna and some Sarah love, where we're not going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about the activities we gave you. Because again, the biggest thing you can do is take action. Even if you don't know it's right, because with action, you will get more confident in yourself and you will get feedback to, is it landing? I'll end with this. As you are thinking about promoting yourself, when you share something about yourself, when you take all of the steps that I just said, confidence, belief, I'm going to think about them. The last question is never, what do you think? Because you don't actually want to know what they think, because what they think opens up for, well, there's an improvement that needs to happen. I'm just going to remind you are all fantastic. You've already gotten there. What you want to know from people when you ask them for feedback about how they are responding to you talking about yourself is the question, what did you hear? And by asking the question, what did you hear? You get two things. One, you find out if what you said landed. What you said is never incorrect. What they hear is the important thing. So did it land or didn't it land? And so often the answer to that question is such a surprise for folks. The second thing, when you ask the question, what do you hear, that happens, and this is the key to self-promotion, is you've just given somebody who has been listening to you a practice session on how to talk about you in the room that you are not in. Self-promotion, I will say again, is actually not about you at all. It's actually about the stories other people tell about you. And so if you can teach them how to talk about you, you can make your dreams come true. I hope some of that advice and all of that awesome from Sarah has inspired the get out of you. It certainly inspired the hoo-ha out of me. I was feeling a little bit like, oh my God, what am I doing this morning? No more, no longer. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about the course. And it looks like Sarah also dropped a coupon in the chat, which we will share in the follow-up email as well. Thank you very much, Sarah. Always like a discount for the whole program. Again, feel free to reach out. Also check out Chairman Mom, amazing organization. There's also going to be more pre-shows on confidence and self-promotion. Sarah, thank you. So